book is set in 1940s rural Tennessee, and it spans 4 decades. It tells the story of Ezekiel Cooper, who is a middle-aged man unhinged by the death of his twin brother. When the brothers were in their early 30s, Carter mysteriously drowned, and that loss was devastating for Ezekiel. And he spent the next 10 years withdrawing from everyone and everything around him, his wife, who ended up divorcing him, and his 2 daughters. And he has been haunted by the question of how there can be him without his brother. He decides finally that he can't keep living the way he has, and he decides he's going to get out of Clayton, his hometown of 42 years, and head east. He doesn't know where he's going, and he throws his dog, a very old and stinky dog that is really his only companion at this point, and is also his brother's dog, into his truck and grabs a copy of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which was a book he and his brother enjoyed reading when they were young, and heads east and eventually lands at a farm, his cousin's farm in Virginia, in horse country outside Charlottesville. And at Lacey Farms, Ezekiel begins to see some other possibilities for his life, and thanks to severe weather and Alzheimer's and a very attractive neighbor, he is forced to decide whether or not he wants to answer that question of how there can be him without his brother and create a new life, or if he wants to stay mired in the past and in his grief. So the character of Ezekiel was inspired by my dad, who grew up in Pocahontas, Tennessee, very small town, and was the kid that was a very bright kid, and he was really wanted to connect with the world outside of Pocahontas. This was back in the 40s and 50s. There was no TV. He would wait for the mail train every day that came through town to go and get, the mail was a way for him to connect with the world, and he's still obsessed with the mail, and I'm actually a little bit obsessed with mail too. So for my dad, he was the kid who was the first to graduate from college in his family. He went on to become a professor and travel the world and has written many, many books. And I knew Ezekiel had had a similar kind of upbringing in a small town, was also very bright, but I knew he didn't get out. I knew at middle-aged he was still in this small town, and I was really interested in figuring out why. He had failed to meet expectations, and what happens, he was the kid of the 5 children in their family that his mother had picked to be the one to go kind of carry her dreams that had been lost because she got pregnant at 15 and was married at 15 and had 5 children by her early 20s. She kind of puts everything into Zeke, and he does make it to college on a full scholarship for a semester, but then an incident that happens back home with his brother pulls Ezekiel back, and he is 25 years later still in Clayton. I'm an 8th generation Southerner. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where my mother's family is from. I don't sound like I was born there. I was raised predominantly in southwestern Oklahoma and then have been on the West Coast for a number of years, so the accent is not very clear unless I'm hanging out with the Southern folks. My dad is from rural Tennessee, Pocahontas, Tennessee, which is 60 miles east of Memphis, and it's his childhood growing up in Pocahontas in the 1940s and 50s that really inspired the book.